Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. In 2022, Exploding 10 Games successfully kickstarted the fantasy adventure game Dungeons of Doria, attracting over 1,000 backers and unlocking all of their stretch goals. The game went into production shortly after, and backers started to receive rewards in September 2023, just 1 month later than the estimated August 2023 delivery date. At that time, I was contacted by designer Victor Ahrens, who asked if I would be interested in receiving a review copy. Obviously I said yes, as this sort of game is so up my street it's moved in next door and borrowed a cup of sugar. Plus, I am always interested to see how designers can take a classic dungeon crawler and infuse it with new concepts, and it looks like Dungeons of Doria is bringing some fresh ideas to the table. I should point out first, at the moment there is no wide-scale retail release planned for the game, but don't panic. Exploding 10 Games will have a presence at Spiel at Essen, which kicks off on the 5th of October 2023, where they will be selling the rest of the Kickstarter print run at €99 per copy. If you are lucky enough to be at Essen, you can find the team at booth 3H123. Additionally, after Spiel, and once all backers have received their copies, any remaining copies of the game will be available on Exploding 10 Games website, which I will link to in the video description below. Finally, all being well, if the interest is there to support it, Victor may run a Kickstarter for a second print run in 2024. Now, I haven't had a huge amount of time with the game at this point, so I'm not in a position to do an in-depth review right now. That will follow in a few weeks. However, with the game being available at Spiel in just a few short days from when I am creating this video, I wanted to put together a little unboxing and share some of my initial thoughts so people could get a better idea of whether this is a game they might be interested in checking out. Right. That's enough preamble, let's get to the good part. The Dungeons of Doria box is a foot square and almost 6 inches deep, and it's incredibly heavy because it's absolutely jam-packed with content. When you lift the lid, you are immediately presented with 5 thick punchboards. These contain all of your utility tokens for things like tracking monsters, damaged items and wounds. Then there are tokens that go onto the dungeon tiles to mark rubble, secret doors, wow, those look familiar, traps and treasure. For the most part, the tokens look good. They are clear and easy to understand. The one exception are these tokens for tracking experience, initiative points, health points and psi points, which are basically mind points. They are incredibly small and fiddly at around 8mm across, and one of the psi points is missing a symbol. Fortunately, you don't have to use these if you are happy to track all your stats with a pencil and an eraser. Besides that, the punchboards include the standees for your 6 heroes and all of the monsters. I know some people are going to be disappointed by the lack of miniatures. To be fair, I also tend to prefer miniatures in most cases, but standees do have their advantages. First, it means we get more enemies crammed into the box without the price escalating out of all control. But more importantly for me, it means I don't have any new miniatures to add to my ever-increasing paint queue. I do quite like some of this artwork too. The spear thrower is rather adorable. Additionally, it's worth noting that the enemies here are traditional. You have goblins, orcs, trolls, skeletons, zombies, ghosts, dragons. I reckon I could replace every single one of these standees with miniatures I already own, and anybody who owns a couple of fantasy dungeon crawlers could probably do exactly the same. Heck, a copy of Hero Quest will get you most of the way there, and if you play D&D with miniatures, you're golden. The other thing I immediately noticed was that all 8 heroes are humans. No elves, no dwarves, no halflings, cats, crows or tortoises. This isn't something you see all that often, and I do like that each character is from a different region of the game's setting, so they are all culturally distinct in appearance. It's a nice mix of classes too. Again, nothing out of the ordinary. There is a huntress, adventurer, shield maiden, scoundrel, ranger, mage, warrior and priestess. For those people who care about such things, there are no alternative male and female versions of each class, but there are 4 male heroes and 4 female heroes. Beneath the punchboards you get a ridiculous wedge of booklets, a quick start guide, the rules, I have read through these and they seem pretty solid, room events, which are used with an optional rule where an event may trigger every time you open a door, and then we have a book of 20 single scenarios designed to be played in a few hours with a new group of heroes, and 4 campaign books. Each campaign requires you to play through 8 or 9 dungeons, but some of them have branching narratives, so you won't see everything on a single playthrough. It looks like an insane amount of gameplay. Next we have the tracker board. It's double-sided, and while each side is functionally the same, the layouts are different so you can pick the side that you like the most. If I'm honest, both designs irk me. None of the spaces line up neatly, they are all higgledy-piggledy with uneven spacing. I would have much preferred something more uniform. Regardless, the main tracker, which goes from 0 to 40, tracks 3 things. First, the top 10 spaces are a doom track. This game doesn't have a hard timer to keep the players moving, which I do appreciate a lot, but the longer the players take, the more the monsters will level up and activate, and the doom track marks when those extra monster activations occur. The board also counts the number of rounds the players have taken, and is used to keep track of initiative order, and I think the initiative system in this game is pretty neat. At the start of each round, characters and monsters calculate their number of action points for the round, which could be as many as 40, and they place a tracker on the relevant space on the board. The character with the most action points has initiative and will act first, spending action points to perform an action, which may be moving, attacking, or using an item. Their initiative tracker is then moved down the track a number of spaces equal to the action points used. If they are still at the top of the track, they can now perform another action, but if they aren't, the character or monster that is now at the top will activate instead. This continues until everyone has spent their action points for the round. While this is admittedly a little more fiddly than characters and monsters taking it in turns to activate, it does add a nice back and forth to the game turns, and there is more of a time management element as performing quick actions will keep you first in the initiative order, while performing a slow action means you will move way down the track and may not get to activate again for a long time. The potentially large number of action points available each turn also makes action management more granular. Swinging a sword may be 9 action points, but swinging a warhammer may be 15 action points. You can choose to attack with a weapon from your belt, but that's going to cost an extra 4 action points to draw the weapon into your hand. Moving one space is 1 action point, but if you really need to book it, you can pump more action points into movement and cover huge distances. It's an interesting system, but it comes at the cost of an increased level of bookkeeping and a little more heavy lifting with the mental arithmetic required to juggle those bigger numbers. Large numbers are definitely the order of the day here, as the game makes use of D10s. In this insert well in the box, under some spare baggies, you get a whole bunch of D10s. 2 in each of the hero colours, and then some black ones for monsters and white ones that anyone can use if they need to make bigger rolls. These dice are used for everything. For example, if you wanted to attack with this hunting bow, you would roll 2d10 and then add 5. If you roll any 10s, they explode and you can roll them again for even better scores. Your opponent would then roll for defense based on their armor or natural ability to dodge, probably rolling 2d10 with a modifier, and the highest score wins, with the attacker breaking ties. Similarly, tests often require you to roll 2d10 and then add 2 of your character's stats in order to match or exceed a target value. An example might be dodging a boulder trap, which requires you to roll 2d10 plus your strength plus your agility. So yeah, bigger numbers, and the game is just a little more maths heavy than some other dungeon crawlers, which might be a barrier for introducing the game to younger players. Moving on, the box contains all your plastic bases for the standees, coloured ones for heroes, clear ones for monsters. Then there's a well of small cards, and if we lift this tray out, another 4 wells of more cards. This game was promoted as a roguelike game with loads of loot during the Kickstarter, and they weren't lying. The box includes over 500 different loot cards, weapons, spells, armour, potions and more. Absolutely loads of options for customising your heroes, which is great. There's also 160 mini cards for drawing random monster encounters, 60 door events, 24 standard equipment cards and 16 campaign items. And that's just the mini cards. We'll get to the regular cards in a minute. Next up we have 8 character boards. These are used in the game to arrange your equipment. It shows what you have immediate access to, either the items you are wearing or the things you are holding in your hands. And then it also has spaces for items attached to your belt and a space for storing things in a backpack. All of these boards are functionally identical, they just have different images for the different heroes. They are nice and clear and made from a decent quality board, but I do fear they are going to take up a lot of table space. This game could be quite the table hog, especially if you run a full party of 6 heroes. Plus, to keep track of your character, you will also need a character sheet. These are double-sided. One side has spaces marked out so you can track hit points, initiative points and side points with those dinky tokens I showed you earlier. But on the reverse, there is an alternative version of the sheet where you just write in those values. That's the side for me. You get a decent wedge of these character sheets, and you also get a separate pad for tracking your progress through campaigns. I think there's more here than you would ever need. And in the insert beneath those pads, we have 2 more packs of cards. These are full-sized cards describing the monster's stats and special abilities. There are also cards for pre-generated characters, although it is worth noting that the only difference between these characters are their stats and their starting gear. All abilities in this game are derived through equipment, and characters can only use equipment if their relevant stats are high enough. That means in theory any character can become whatever you want them to be as you improve their stats. It's just easier for warriors to continue focusing on strength while mages focus on psi powers. In that sense, this system feels much more like the Dark Souls board game, where it's the equipment you have access to that determines your abilities in a fight. As a nice bonus, the game does have rules for generating your own characters and even includes extra starting equipment for more control over how you want your hero to play. Finally, the last thing in the box is a set of 48 room tiles. These look nicely illustrated. I've certainly seen better artwork, but these are clean and easy to read, and they at least evoke the feel of a classic dungeon. Unfortunately, they are on thin card rather than thick board, but I do understand why that concession was made. 48 tiles is a lot, and making them out of a heavier board would have been a costly endeavour. The symbols all over the tiles indicate where monsters will spawn and where treasures appear. And that is just about your lot. I think there is a huge amount of content in this box, with 20 single session scenarios plus 4 campaigns. Using over 500 loot cards and 48 room tiles, there is a lot of replayability here. You could repeat campaigns and go on completely different adventures, finding completely different loot. Combined with the fact that you can evolve heroes in the way you see fit, even shifting their role within the party based on which stats you level up, there just seems to be a lot of reasons to revisit the game, even after working through all the campaigns. I also think there are some interesting rules. The initiative system seems solid, and I do like the granular nature of the combat system. Rather than simply having one action you can use to attack with, you can choose to make quick attacks with light weapons or slow attacks with heavy weapons, and I think that's going to add an interesting extra layer to the gameplay. But there we go, that's a quick unboxing and some initial thoughts. I will be posting a much more detailed review when I have played more and I have a better understanding of how this all hinges together in play. For now, I just want to say thank you once again to Victor and Exploding 10 Games for sending this review copy to the channel, and thank you all for watching. If you like this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so, and hopefully, I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone, bye bye.